Awesome. Well, hey, Leo, I just want to thank you for taking the time. Again, for those of you listening, this is the Raise the Bar podcast. My name is Troy Haynes. I'm a former high jumper, and in college and low level. when I talk with people like Leo, I realize how low level my jumping was. But I'm excited to have Leo. We had a friend of Leo's, Doug Nordquist, was with us a couple weeks ago. And we're just getting finally a chance to sit down and talk. So, Leo, I was looking at your bio, and it had a brief mention of high school. And is it in Indiana?
Correct.
Okay,
yeah, Muncie, Indiana.
What was that like in high school? Were you track only, or did you do any other sports?
No, I played basketball. Our school didn't have any football. I mean, it had golf, tennis, cross country, track, swimming, and basketball. And of course, Indiana basketball's like, the number one sport in the state.
Oh yeah.
So everybody, either you played or you didn't play. It was kind of one of those things. There was no in between.
Right.
But track was always a love of mine. My dad was a track athlete, so to speak, and I was blessed to go from jumping 5'11" as a sophomore to 6'9" as a junior. So
wow.
Kind of opened up my eyes, and obviously as you mentioned, as a high jumper, Troy, I mean you know what that's like when you have success like that. In an individual sport that's part of a team, it's just really refreshing. You didn't have to rely on anybody. It was all on your own abilities, right? I mean, the harder you worked, the more successful you got, and it just kind of you fed off of that. And that for me was, man, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So,
Wow.
Yeah, and I loved it from the standpoint that Indiana was a great place to grow up in. Just absolutely great place. I mean, it's obviously the Midwest, but it's as wholesome as it gets. I went to school with folks that I knew from K through 12. It was one school. We had 44 kids in our graduating class, and I think probably 30 of us knew each other from the time we were 5 to 18. So
wow,
it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, with 6'9" now, that opened some doors for you. Did you end up winning state either of those 2 years, your junior, senior year?
No, I think my junior year, I got 8th in my state. Some guy named Jeff Woodard, who went on to become the American record holder, won our state that year. And then my senior year, I tied for 4th.
Wow.
And, it was a tough state. I mean, I think my junior year, Jeff jumped 2 meters 16, 7'1". And my senior year, I jumped 6'8" in my state meet, and I think the winner jumped 7 feet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
like you said, I'm thinking back. 82, my senior year in state meet in California, I got to jump against Maurice Crumby, who had jumped 7'3" or 4", and
right,
John Morris from Cal.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At that time, so there was a bunch of people that, when I got there, I was thinking, oh, I'm on fire. I'm going to win this thing. And, the jumpers from up north, we just were unknown to us from the, south part of California. So, oh, John Morris at Cal. Yeah, I jumped 7'5" or 6 later on. It's like, okay, that explains why it was so tough. So I get what you're saying about a tough state meet. But it's good for you, right? Good competition. So, and other sports was basketball, and I'm sure you could dunk a basketball. Did you play much? Were you like a starter? Were you on varsity?
I wasn't a starter till my senior year, and then my senior year, I was all city.
Cool.
So,
you a shooting guard or forward? Where'd you play?
No, a center. I was 6'2" and a half, 146 pounds. And I was a center.
So they stuck you at center.
Yeah, I was a center. I mean, you saw the movie Hoosiers?
Yeah.
Well, that was us. We were the small. I mean, you got to remember, my high school, there was only 250 kids in the school. So yeah, we were teeny tiny, and we went to the sectional finals against perennial state powerhouse Muncie Central. They beat us. They crushed us, but they went on to win the state that year. So that's our claim to fame. Well, we got eliminated, but we got eliminated by the state champs.
Yeah, it always makes you feel a little bit better, right?
Yeah, but just great memories of high school. Still lifelong friends from back in Indiana, and just a great bunch of guys. Just a great bunch of guys.
That's awesome. So the other thing I knew about you for the longest time was that you were in the Navy. How did that come about? Was there any family ties to the Navy, or just?
Well, I mean, my dad in World War II was in the Army, and I had a cousin that was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and uncles that were in the Army, during the war. But what happened my junior year, I had a very good friend that went to one of the other high schools in the city, and he and I were close. And he was being recruited by Annapolis. And that was the beginning of our junior year. Yeah. And so he went to see Navy play Butler at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And he said, "You should come along. You should come along." He said, "Coach is going to be there." And Benjamin was much better in basketball than I was. I mean, he was great when we were probably 12. So I said, "Yeah, I'll go." My mom said, let's go check it out. We went there. We were talking to the coach, and he said, "Well, we're very interested in Benjamin." He said, "But do you play basketball?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, what other sports do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a high jumper too." And he said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Well, how high have you jumped?" And I think at that point I jumped like 6'6", 6'7". And this is it going. I hadn't even really got to my junior year of competition. And he said, "You're kidding me." I said, "No." And so he went back and told the track coach, and from there on, they were recruiting me hard and heavy. And I didn't really want to go to the service academies when I first started off. It was just kind of novel. It was kind of nice to have the opportunity to be part of such a select few of great individuals. But I kind of got that track bug, and so all of a sudden, I'm thinking Big Ten, Pac-10.
Right.
Might have been Pac-8 at that time, but Pac-10.
Right.
I'm thinking, hey, I want to go. I'm from a small town in Indiana. I want to go big time. I want to get out there, right? And I'll never forget this. My mom said to me, she goes, "Look, young man," she goes, "going to one of the service academies is one of the greatest honors you could ever have." They said, folks talk about the Ivy Leagues, Big Ten, Pac-10, whatever, SEC. She said, "But if you're half as good, it doesn't have to be half, just a smidgen as good as you obviously think you are, you'll do fine at the service academy. If you can jump just as well there." And I was like, wow. And she said, "Plus, it's going to set you up for life, whether you stay in for as a career with the Navy or Air Force or Marines or Army, or you decide to do other things. You've got a platform to work from." And so obviously I love my mom, and it's not like it is with a lot of kids today. When my mom spoke, I listened.
Right.
Definitely when my dad spoke, I listened.
Right.
And so I had the opportunity to go to the Naval Academy, and I took advantage of it. And I haven't looked back since. It's really been wonderful. I miss nothing. I had a great college life. I competed at the highest levels around the world. I miss nothing. It was just, I think I really had the best of both worlds. I really do.
Awesome.
Great education, and like she said, a great platform to work from.
And you served 6 years? Is that after that?
I did. When I was 28, my fifth year of my 6 that I ended up serving, I found out that I had a degenerative disease, macular degeneration, at 28. And that as a civil engineer, you kind of need your eyes. That's kind of important.
Right.
And so I had to get an honorable discharge because my vision was going bad. And so, I'm not going to say that halted my career, but it definitely put a damper on it.
Right.
So, got out and, like I said, went into the civilian sector, and then had a friend that was in medical device sales, selling pacemakers and defibrillators, and talked to me about it. I thought that was extremely interesting. And I couldn't believe that, non-med students were actually selling these devices, but what they wanted is they wanted engineers at that time, and I fit the bill. So I took them up on that, and again, never looked back. It's been wonderful.
Wow. So I was looking through your bio. For those of you listening, Leo jumped at the Navy, and his personal best is listed at 229, right? That's 7.76 a couple different times. One at the NC2A finals in 1982, which was a rather, I want to say prestigious meet, but and it was obviously, but I was looking at the people that were there between yourself, Del Davis, who ended up jumping. I'm unmuting. Are you still there, Leo?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry, man. It just faded out.
Yeah, it's weird. It faded out. We can always fix it in editing.
Okay.
So anyway, I was talking about that meet and the big meet at Provo, Utah, and
It was a great meet. Your teammate was there.
Del Davis was there, right? Jumped 7.7, and
Yep, he sure did.
Mel Oddie was there from Canada, right?
Milt was there. Yeah.
Well, you jumped well and so a pretty famous meet was. I had a couple questions about it. First of all, we're just talking about the marks, but what was it like jumping at Provo? Because I heard that was at altitude. Do you think that had anything to do with the heights, or was it just everybody was on fire?
Well, I mean, I think everybody was on fire, but I can't say that altitude didn't attribute to those hot marks, but I jumped just as high as sea level. So for me,
Right.
I'm not going to say it was just the altitude, but I mean, it was a perfect day. There was no wind. The contrast of the bar to the background was perfect. Sometimes you jump some places and there might be a glare or something, or wind being in a certain direction. I mean, the conditions were perfect. They were absolutely perfect. And it was the NCAAs. Everybody really wanted to jump well. So, I mean, it was just a perfect storm. It was a perfect storm. And I honestly believe at that time, I know for Milt Oddie, he was just not going to be denied. I had beat Milt 3 straight meets in NCAAs. From 81, I beat him indoors and outdoors, and then I beat him indoors in 82. And when we came to outdoors, he was just a man on a mission. He was like, this guy is just not going to beat me again. And I gave him all I had.
Right.
But, he jumped 232, and it was just phenomenal. It was a great jump on his part. And then Del came back, and what was interesting about Del is he had a lot of misses. And I'm thinking, man, I was one of those jumpers that usually didn't have a lot of misses.
Right.
But he had a lot of misses and still made 232, and which was a PR for him. Yeah. I don't think he ever jumped higher. I think that was his PR.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna have one, it's one of the best times. Second best time is like Doug have a PR in the Olympic trials. Right. Several times. So if you got to pick them, those are the meets to pick them in for sure.
Right. Absolutely. Well, that's awesome. So that meet was big, and again, we just threw out the Doug Nordquist name. So those of you that are listening out there, Doug Nordquist made the Olympic team in '84. And what I read on Leo's bio, I didn't even know this, Leo. I'm just going to tell this story. When I was that was sophomore year was 1984, and as a freshman at UCLA. I regressed my freshman year, didn't jump very well. I did the freshman 15 pounds. I think I went up from 180 to 195. And both Del Davis and Lee Balkin used to tell me that I was too heavy. And I was like, I didn't get what they meant, because I'm like, in my mind, I'm still a tall, skinny guy at, 6'3", 195. Whenever I looked in the mirror and someone said skinny, my brain always said weak. So I always wanted to get stronger, and the weight room was one of the great things that we had at UCLA. So anyway, I didn't jump really well that first year. And the second year, my goal had, obviously been to get over 7 feet since high school. And, when I did that year, and then ended up jumping 7.2. And that is what Larson had told me. Bob Larson, the jump coach, had said, if I jumped 7.2, that they would give me some scholarship money. So I was like, my goals were pretty much fulfilled, and I didn't even, if you'd have asked me before that season, what about the Olympic trials or something like that, I'd have just laughed at you. I'd have gone, what do you mean Olympic trials? I jumped 6'8" last year as a freshman. And so, like I said, 7 feet and 7.2 came, but all of a sudden, I think the trial height that year was 4.25, I want to say.
Yeah, it was 224.
224,
to
right? So
to make the trials.
Just to make the trial, right? So I actually got told, once Pac-10s were over and everything, he said, you could still get a trial height. You should go find some meets to jump at. So I went down to San Diego, found a meet down there, and I remember getting in and jogging around and stretching, and I saw Irv Cross from CBS Sports was down there, had a microphone on him, and he was talking, and then I saw you, and I heard somebody say, that's Leo Williams from the Navy. I'm like, oh, okay. I had no idea, and I'm watching you run through and jump, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm not in this. This is like way above my level, right? So I don't remember even what I jumped, but I do remember seeing you there and going, oh my gosh, that's what high jumpers should look like. So that's my story about that. But then that was the whole Olympic year and trying to get into the trials, for the first time for me, belated, and, wasn't really on my goal frame before that year, but in 88 was more so then. And I had here that in the Olympic trials, you ended up in 4th, and I didn't know that. So you're the Olympic team alternate.
Absolutely.
Is that where you get to know Doug?
Well, I knew Doug all through college. So Doug went to Washington State, and obviously I competed against him. I think the first time I remember seeing Doug was 80, might have been 82, 1982 indoors. And then, of course, he has the good, well, I'll just say his cousin is Dwight. So obviously through Dwight, I knew Doug also. And so that's kind of where our friendship began. But, Doug was a very good jumper. But Doug became a great jumper in 84. I mean, his ascent to greatness is really a remarkable, it's a blessing. I mean, God said, you, my son, you will have this ability and it will come out now. He always had it, but you made mention of being a little bit bigger. Doug was kind of chunky in college. I mean, he was thick, but he was strong as an ox. I remember he used to fly at the bar and he would just load up and take off. I'm like, man, this guy has explosion, but he could never get the timing right. And when I saw him, because I was obviously on the East Coast, he was out here on the West Coast. When I saw him, I think at Pepsi, at your home ground there at UCLA in 84.
Yeah.
And he and Jake Jacoby were there. I don't know if Dwight jumped. He may have, but I remember those two. And I looked at Doug. It looked like Doug had lost 30 pounds. I mean, he was slim, trim. He was sinewy. I mean, he looked, he had that high jumper look.
Yeah, he had the look.
But I said, he's probably just not going to be able to put it together, though, when it comes time. There's just some guys you just know when the big meet comes, they're probably not going to have their day that day. And the great thing about Doug was at the trials, it not only took 7.4 to get to the trials, just to qualify to even have the opportunity to compete. It took 7.4 for the most part to automatically qualify for the final. So you go to the trials, you get there, the qualifying round, you got 2 pits, and they tell you pit A, pit B. Those that clear 7.4 will go to the final. Those that don't, we're taking the top 12 and ties.
Right.
Well, Doug only cleared 7.3 in the qualifying round. But as luck would have it, only 11 people automatically qualified at 7.4 1/4. And he got pulled through because he had cleared the 7-3, everyone else. The rest is history. You know, he got to the final and he PR'd, I want to say 3 times. I want to say 7.4.5 was a PR. Then 7.5 3/4 was a PR, and definitely 7.7 was a PR.
Yeah.
And made the Olympic team and never looked back from there. He
Yeah.
never looked back from that. That door opened or that boat came in, and Doug was on it. And he was driving it. And you know, for the most part, Doug's jump of 2:36 to this day, his PR at 7.8 3/4 to this day is one of the highest marks by any American ever. I mean, I think there's a couple guys that have gone 37, and the Hollises and the Charles of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, it's just a remarkable feat, and I'm just so proud of him because more important than his track accolades, Doug is just salt of the earth. He is, well, one of my best friends, and has been for the last 35 years.
Yeah.
So I love him dearly, and if I had to lose out on making the Olympic team, I'm glad it happened with Dougie. Glad it happened with Dougie.
Yeah, I'm sure that's rare for people to hear something like that, and something that can mean so much to people. So that's yeah, when I start hearing about these meets with the high flyers, so we started talking about Doug, but then you ended up in 4th. So what did it take to get 4th, and then what were the odds of you actually getting to compete as being the alternate?
Well, the reason why I got 4th was the thing that usually made me place higher. I had one miss at 7.4.5, and I had one miss at 7.5 3/4. And Milk Good was flawless. He had no misses through 7.5 3/4, and he got 3rd, and I got 4th on last attempt. I mean, it looked great, like it was going to stay on, and at the last minute, it toppled off the standards. But that's high jumping, man. It's a game literally of centimeters, and so I must say it wasn't a pleasant thing being in 4th place, but you have to look at things as half full, not half empty. And all my life, from the time from the time I can remember, I remember speaking of my dad, who was a state champ in Indiana, and in 1936 got 11th as a high school senior at the 36 Olympic trials in Randall's Island. And so all my life I heard of the greatness of my dad and my uncles, who were great sprinters. And so I knew about track, and I knew what kind of dedication it took. It just manifested in me late in life, late in my high school career.
Right.
But from the time I was 16 until up until that time, every day of my life was dedicated to making the Olympic team. That was it. I never, ever had any doubt that I had the talent to get to that level. I knew it was just a matter of working hard and maturing. And so I continued to dedicate myself to that all the way through 84. And obviously I competed after that in 88, 92. But 84 was really my window, if you want to call it as such.
Yeah.
And so it was tough, but it's a lesson that in life too. You work hard for things, and sometimes it just doesn't work out like you planned it. But you got to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and get back after it. If your dream is still not fulfilled, try to make it again.
Yep.
And just never give up. Well, that's what life's about, man. That's what life's about.
Great lessons in athletics for life. I've heard that from so many, and I've experienced myself, and hearing you talk about it, doesn't really matter the sport, football. I remember our football coaches telling us, you're going to learn lessons here, perseverance, hard work, sticking together, you got each other's back. I mean, you just go on, and overcoming adversity, you hear that all the time from your football coaches, you get a crucial turnover at the wrong time. What are you going to do? You know, you just quit, or do you keep fighting, you know? So yeah,
No doubt.
that's amazing. And then I was going to ask you, Leo, one of the things about the Raise the Bar podcast here is that my passion has been to learn how to get better at jumping now physically. You know, at age 57 now, I don't have it, but I'm, you know, training athletes and, you know, always trying to find a better way to train, you know, and I was looking at your bio and it said that even though you had helped your teams win numerous titles, those of you out there that think about high jumpers, and, you know, and people always say track and field, and then, you know, high jumpers really don't like to run. And Leo's bio said that even though he's never ever run more than 50 meters in his life, I thought that was pretty funny. But you know, high jump training is a lot different than a lot of other events. You know, when you think track and field, when I'm sure Leo's had this experience, I've had it many times, and people go, "Oh, you were in track, so you were a runner." I'm like, no.
You're right.
No, I was never fast.
Right.
You know, but I could always jump over stuff. So yeah, two totally different things. But what would you say to a beginning coach or a young athlete about you know, how to train, how to get to that level?
Well, I mean, you made a very good point earlier when you said that you felt like you had to be strong. I mean, that's never going to go out of style. I think one of my greatest advantages when I was in high school was the fact that I started lifting as part of a formal lifting program. My coach, from the time I was 13 until I actually retired, and he ended up being the head coach at the Naval Academy for 35 years, Steve Cooksey. Steve started me on a very regimented, controlled lifting program when I was 16. When I was 13, I was just tall and lanky, and I could just athletically get over a bar. So, you know, I'm a kid. I know nothing. I just like winning, and I was winning. But then when my growth spurt stopped, you know, at a young age, and then all of a sudden it took more than just raw talent. I was getting crushed my freshman and sophomore year, and I hated that. I don't think anybody likes losing, but I really hated it. And so I went to Steve and I said, I'm ready to start actually working out and you know, trying to make something of this. And he put me on a weightlifting program. And I to this day, I think that's made the difference.
So,
all natural, wasn't any steroids. That's, you know, such a cliche, but it's so true. There was none of that. It was just get in the weight room. You've got to get your legs stronger, you got to get your core stronger. Because without that, nothing else matters. You can't get in the positions you need to unless you have the flexibility and strength to do it. So it all begins by being strong enough to be able to accommodate that.